Get Rich Education is brought to you by Reef Oil and Gas Companies, partners in American energy production for world consumption.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, Show 12. I am your host, Keith Weinhold. I hope you've had an abundant week. Real estate is that investment that has created more multimillionaires and billionaires than anything else. And I've said that real estate investing is a people and numbers business. It is about people first. So your ability to relate with people is driven by the words that you use and choose. In everyday life, people sell themselves every day with the words they choose. This is especially true in business, and with that in mind, our guest today is none other than the world's #1 sales trainer, the transcendent Tom Hopkins, and it was so fun to interview him. I don't think I've ever had so much fun in an interview, and it really picks up steam at the end when Tom talks about how to get others to say yes to you and what some of his best closing techniques are for getting a sale. This is going to create value for you whether you sell real estate, sell your skill set to be a better deal negotiator and influencer, or just sell yourself in everyday life. Our guest today is really special. He is the leading sales trainer in the world, especially experienced with real estate sales. When he was a real estate agent, in his last 365 days as an agent, he sold 365 homes during that time. His high-energy sales events have been attended live and in person by more than 5 million people on 5 continents. He is the author of 18 books. He wrote 18 books. I don't think I've read 18 pamphlets. One of his books, How to Master the Art of Selling, has sold 1.5 million copies worldwide in itself. Here he is, the legendary Mr. Tom Hopkins. How you doing, Tom?
Well, I'm excited to be with you and to share some great ideas with all of your listeners.
Yeah, well, it's a real pleasure to have you here. You know, when someone has built up such acclaim and notoriety over time, a lot of people are already familiar with you, but I know we have some listeners that aren't. So sort of what's your origin story? How did you grow up to be really the leading sales trainer in the world?
Well, I guess there's an old saying, Keith, that performance speaks for itself. And what you said earlier is the year that I was only 23 years of age, and I sold 365 homes, averaging one a day for a year.
That's amazing.
I know, and that's when they started calling me because, the average real estate agent might sell 1 home a week, and if they do 4 a month, they're hot stuff. So that caught the National Association of Realtors' attention, and they said, we have to get this guy to come and speak to us. So I went to the National Convention in Los Angeles, and I spoke and told them just basically the outline of what I do with people. And all of a sudden, my phone started ringing, and that's almost 5,000 seminars later, here we are talking.
So with all this experience you've had talking to people and helping them with sales and success, one thing I often hear from people when they're sort of scared about selling or that they think they can't do it is sometimes they'll say, I just don't think I was really born to sell. Can selling be a learned skill or is that something you're kind of born with?
Well, Keith, this has been probably one of my greatest goals in life, my entire career, is to convince people that selling is a learned art form, and there's 2 extreme personalities and temperaments. If we could look at the far left here, we would say there is the interesting extrovert. Then over here we have the interested introvert. Now, of those two titles, interesting extrovert, interested introvert, the ones that gravitate to selling naturally are the interesting extroverts. Their qualities, they're outgoing, they're talkative, they love to control conversations. They really are outgoing, but they are the stereotypical image of a salesperson, which, by the way, threatens many consumers. Because even though we're the greatest consuming nation in the world, the average American doesn't like the thought of being sold. They love to own. Now, if we look on the other side, we have the interested introvert. This person's a little humble, a little shy. They love to ask questions. They let the other person talk. Now, if I had to choose, if I could have the person on both ends, I'd want the interested introvert, because I can teach them to not only master questioning, but I can teach them to be a good listener, to lead people instead of push them. And so I guess that both can be better. If I right now, watching this message, thought I'm really an interesting extrovert, I'd like to have them move towards the middle to be more like an interested introvert. If I was too much of an interested introvert, I'd want them to move to the middle to be more like the interesting extrovert. Because the ideal personality and temperament can move to relate to either extreme. If I met you and you really were an interesting extrovert, I could become more like you. Interested introvert, I could relate and become more like you. The key is to be flexible in the way you handle people so that you relate to them and don't demand or ask them to relate to you.
So you're sort of feeling someone out a bit and then aligning your approach that way.
Exactly. There's been this old saying, you have to be a natural born salesperson. And I will guarantee you, Keith, no woman in a delivery room ever gave birth to a top sales performer. They aren't born. They become experts. They learn the fundamentals of selling. They master their skills, and they're no different than a great athlete as far as constantly working to be better at the way they come across with people. Because we're really not in sales as much as we are in the people business. And handling people is the key to helping them go along with your thinking, if, of course, what you're offering you believe in, and it's good for the other person.
So you mentioned the fundamentals of selling. In fact, in your book, How to Master the Art of Selling, in Chapter 1, you cover the 7 fundamentals of selling. Tell us about those.
Well, all activities, sports, endeavors have fundamentals. For example, if you and I were talking about football, we would have 2 broad fundamentals: offense, defense. Then each player's position has fundamentals: blocking, tackling. So we have fundamentals in everything. If right now we were talking about golf, I would say, well, there's basically 4 fundamentals of a good golf swing: grip, alignment, stance, and posture. Now, if you don't have those down, fundamentally sound, you'll probably not develop a consistent good golf game. And that word consistent is so important, Keith, because successful people are consistent in the way they produce. It's not a high, a low, big month, small month. They every day know the activities they must accomplish to have the productivity, the income at the end of the month. So in selling, there are 7 basic fundamentals. Prospecting, number 1, is finding the right people to sell and then helping them say yes to the opportunity. So that's number 1. Number 2, though, is when you meet someone, the second fundamental is the original contact. How you come across in the beginning with people, how you establish rapport, how you bring down their defense barriers, how you get them to open their mind to hear what you're offering them. Then, of course, the third fundamental is called qualification, to where you ask the right questions to qualify what the buyer can say yes to, what they can afford financially, are they the decision maker? And then, of course, number 4, is giving the presentation. Now, if you do all those four beautifully, and please, people watching, don't forget this. Your product or service is not what it is. It's what it does for the buyer after they own it. Too many people are selling the product instead of the benefits they'll get when they own it. So you do a good presentation. Then, of course, number 5, if you do all four well, number 5 is handling objections or areas of concern. And people, average people, cannot say yes to spend money, Keith, until they give you some type of no. And that's why a pro doesn't matter. Don't worry about no's. I've got to get the no's before I can get the yes. And then, of course, number 6 is the art of closing the sale, which is totally an art form. It's, I think, what separates our training from other motivators or trainers in the country. We really teach sitting down at a table, helping a person say yes, handling their no's, turning no's into yeses, and so forth. And then, of course, number 7 is you must get referrals, which we call quality introductions, to other people they know after you've closed the sale. And the highest income earning people in this country, that some make 7 figures a year, have mastered these 6 fundamentals.
And I think a lot of people tend to forget about the last one. After the sale's closed, the referral process only begins, and that's where most of your future sales come from.
Oh, exactly. And what you have to realize, though, Keith, is the top producer prepares them for that. Meaning, if you and I just started this whole selling process, I would say this to you. Now, Keith, you haven't seen a lot of television advertising about our company, have you?
No.
You would say, well, no, because we don't. The reason we don't spend $1 million of advertising is that our company wants to be built on word-of-mouth recommendations from clients we've made happy. So the company has asked me to let you know that if we do an extremely beautiful job for you, if you're totally thrilled, we want the opportunity then to ask for a few people that you might know that we also can serve. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Sure. See, they want the great job. So if I can let them know right out in front, we're building this on word-of-mouth recommendations. So if I do the job in a week, 2 weeks, a month, whenever we close transaction, that's when I will then go back and say, remember when we first talked, how we built our company? You were so gracious to say it would be okay for me now to ask you for 3 other folks that we might serve. So let's think who those 3 people might be, and let me do a great job for them, okay?
So you plant that referral seed early. That's really smart.
So they know how you build your business, so it's not a all of a sudden threatening thing at the end when you get the check and close the sale.
So in talking about fundamentals of being a good seller, oftentimes you're having to overcome objections that the buyer has. And with real estate transactions, you often have to get a lot of little yeses along the way to get to the eventual yes, I will buy. One of those really important potential objections to overcome is a buyer will often say that they want to shop around. They might feel like they're paying too much to buy from you. What are some good ways to handle that objection?
Well, first of all, this is normal. See, that's another thing about a pro. They know that people want a bargain. And I think that you have to sell your value of you as a person in the way you come across with people, your presentation. They have to feel a feeling of, I like this person, I trust this person. They have to feel your integrity, your ethics. And of course, all this is the rapport building process of how you handle people. I, many years ago, said that if I had one goal with people, it would be to develop a way of helping them like me and trust me, and then want to listen to me. See, great salespeople are expert advisors more than salespeople. And that only comes when you have a tremendous amount of expertise, professionalism. You really must know what you're doing. And of course, when I started in real estate, I was a young kid, 19. I didn't understand real estate at all. I didn't do well in the beginning. It's nice to say 365 homes sold on my 4th year, but gosh, the first 6 months I made one little sale. And the reason was I didn't really know the business. And that's another thing that I really hope the folks will remember. You got to be a student of the business. You must not only be a student of real estate, but you have to be a person that invests in real estate yourself. I mean, I know when my first few months I was in real estate, and I'd tell the people when they were in my car, I'd say, oh, you're so wise to look at investing in property, and this is wonderful, and blah, blah, blah. And then they'd go, where do you live? And I'd say, well, I have a little apartment I rent. No credibility. So when I started buying properties and making an investment commitment to own all of these investments, that's where the strength comes from. Don't try to sell what you haven't bought, because if you don't buy it, I don't believe you can sell it. Does that make sense?
Sure. Few things reinforce your point like having skin in the game yourself.
Exactly.
So I've heard you say before that being a good seller, and part of that is the vocabulary that you use with your prospective buyer, and that words form almost pictures in the mind. Does one really need an extensive vocabulary to be a wordsmith, or can you just arrange words in a certain way to help motivate that buyer?
Well, that is a great question, Keith, because there's no pat answer to that question, because it depends, first of all, on the product that you offer. It depends on the status of the folks that you're talking with. For example, in my real estate career, I started in a very inexpensive little area where the people were young people in their early 20s, like I was, I would say in 18, 19, but they were young, they had no money, just like me, I had no money, and so I could relate to them. Now, had, for an example, I at 19 or 20 got into real estate in Beverly Hills, California, where the multimillionaires live, I probably wouldn't have made it because I didn't have the credibility, the rapport. But in the little area that I started with, I related to them, they related to me. And so I think in choosing, I've had people on interviews like this, Keith, especially if we have call-ins. They'll call in, they go, Tom, I'm thinking of leaving my job and going into sales. Where can I make the most money in selling? And I tell them that's not the way you look at your career. Not how much you can make, but how much you love what you do, and the money will become a byproduct of that love affair that you have in the career that you have. People have said to me, Tom, I bet you can sell anything. Well, I believe if you follow my 7 fundamentals in my book, you can sell anything, but you'll make most money selling something you love, something you believe in. There are products that I don't think, Keith, I could sell. My heart wouldn't be in it. I wouldn't have a belief, the passion. I played golf with Wayne Gretzky years ago, and Wayne Gretzky changed the sport of hockey in the world, and of course, primarily in the United States when he joined the Kings in Los Angeles. And after playing golf one day, I said to him, Wayne, you totally, almost as an individual, changed the game of hockey. What do you think the reason was? He said, Tom, I had a passion for all aspects of hockey. I had a passion for practice. See, a lot of people in sales don't have a passion for practicing what they say. He said, I had a passion for winning. A top sales producer has to love to win. And the winning is when you close a sale, they invest their money, they exchange the money for the benefits they'll get from what you're offering. They are thrilled with you as a person. They love what they've done, and they're happy. And I think the key to success is to do something in your life that you earn an income at, but it's not work. See, I've never worked. I define work, Keith, as anything you're doing when you'd rather be doing something else.
That's a great way to put it.
Now, yes, I was a construction worker before I went into real estate, and that was work, and I didn't enjoy that. But once I got my real estate license, once I started investing in properties, I fell in love. And I couldn't sleep at night. I was so excited to get out and do what people call work. It wasn't. It was just fabulous to serve people, to find them real estate investments, to help them build the greatest asset they'll ever have, which is equity in real estate. So, I think you got to fall in love with what you do. which I always have. I like right now when I do a seminar, when I'm in front of 1,000 people and they're all elated to learn how to close more sales and they want to make more money based on what I'm telling them. I mean, what a wonderful way to live, to get paid for serving others to have a better life. And never forget what Zig Ziglar said. You'll get everything in life you want when you help enough other people get what they want, which I've always lived.
One thing that terrifies people to death in sales and outside of sales, just in life, is being told the word no. That crushes some people. What do you do to overcome being told no?
Well, first of all, the two-letter word no does terrify people. But I have tried my best to teach and to live a basic truth that all the yeses in life are really hidden behind the no's. And risk-taking, putting your ego on the line, being willing to, first of all, overcome the fear of possible rejection. This is really what you need to do to become successful. Now, I played a game with no, and I think anyone that's going to be successful in business has to realize that the key to yeses are overcoming no's. And so I played a game with it. And the folks watching right now, they can take the game and change it for their business. But I played it myself. And then when I went into management and I had 18 salespeople, I then made them all learn the no game. Now, the way the no game works is basically this. You must establish about how much money average you'll make when you get a yes and someone gives you a check. Well, let's just make a game of this. Let's say that you give me a check and say yes and buy my product, and I make $100 that goes into my bank. Well, let's just say I have to talk to 5 people that are qualified to get that one yes to make the $100. Well, now we take the 5 people I have to talk to. We then divide, 1 said yes, 4 say no. We take the 4 no's, divide it into the 100, and now we've put a dollar value on no. So in essence, when someone says no, I've made $25. So instead of getting down with a no, we smile and go, thanks for the 25. Now, some folks watching this right now might make $200, $300, $500, $1,000 for every no on their way to getting yeses. And we now, of course, when I was a brand new neophyte salesperson, all of us back then, Keith, had a goal of earning the $100,000 a year. It was almost like if you made 6 figures, you have arrived. Well, see, that's changed today.
Sure.
We have so many people that make 7 figures a year in selling. And that's why the highest income people don't have any guarantees. They're willing to work based on their skills, their abilities. They give up a guarantee so they can have wealth. Because there's a basic truth about income. If you rely on what another man pays you, he's determining your worth. And you'll probably never have huge abundance because you were satisfied with what someone else said you were worth. That's why I love real estate too. When I started buying homes, I set a goal to every 3 months buy a new property. And these properties that I paid, I know this sounds awful, but back in those days when I was 19, 20, 21, 22, homes in Southern California were 20, 25, 30,000. Today they're $300, $400, $500, $1 million. But I made this goal to invest in these properties and of course held them for many, many years. And my net worth and my abundance is more in the equities in those properties than what I make annually. And that's why I try to get people that are watching something like this, take a gamble, risk, invest your money back in real estate, because I'll guarantee it's not going to stop. People go, oh, well, we'll never see homes go up from here. Wait, they will. As long as we have this fabulous United States of America economy, the fabulous free enterprise capitalistic society we all live in, abundance and wealth will always be there. And the foundation, I believe, will be in the real estate owning, not selling, but owning of property.
I believe that too, and that's what we do at Get Rich Education. We educate listeners on how to do that. And when it comes to selling in real estate, Get Rich Education, to get educated on getting rich, and in business, selling is such a fundamental skill that it's remarkable that more people don't focus on increasing their seller skill.
I don't care what you do. I think you're either buying or selling every day of your life.
You're right. That's why it's such a universal skill. You're listening to Get Rich Education. My guest is Tom Hopkins. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Are you looking for an investment with the potential to offer monthly cash flow and tax advantages? While prices fall at the pump, now could be the time to invest in oil and gas. In business for nearly 30 years, Reef Oil and Gas Companies has endured price fluctuations and understands the importance of creating opportunities by purchasing oil and gas properties during distressed times. Primarily focused on the Bakken Three Forks of North Dakota and the Eagle Ford Shale of South Central Texas, Reef's model is designed to generate revenue and provide tax advantages from the production of oil and natural gas. For more information on this investment opportunity, go to reefogc.com. Welcome back to Get Rich Education. We've been detonating knowledge dynamite with the legendary Tom Hopkins. So, Tom, what are some of the words that people should not say when they're trying to sell?
Well, first of all, years ago, I started dissecting what happens when you sell anything. And I realized that the biggest enemy anyone has in selling is a 4-letter word called fear. And any word or phrase that you say that creates this 4-letter enemy fear, you've got to eliminate from your vocabulary. Now, a generality would be this. We could call the words sales jargon. In other words, if I met you at a party and I said, "What do you do, Keith?" And you said, "Well, let me give you some of the things I do, and you tell me who I am." And you said, "Tom, I work with a hammer, nails, and a saw every day." Well, I'd go, "You're a carpenter." And you would say, "Yes." I wouldn't be afraid of you. But if you said to me, "Well, I sell insurance. I'm so glad I met you tonight, and I'm going to try to sell you a lot of it," I would run the other way. So let's define sales jargon. Sales jargon are words and phrases that are used primarily in a selling situation. And there's many of them. To give you a few, the words sell or sold. See, if I said to you, "We've sold a lot of these," that may be true, but all you heard was the word sold, which you don't want me to do to you. So I would never say "we've sold a lot of these." I would say "we've gotten many families involved in this." See, people like to get involved in something, but not get sold it. So there's an example. Another one would be the word buy. It's 3 letters, B-U-Y. But many people, when you meet them, they made a decision before they met you that they are not going to buy. So when you say, "Now, if you buy in this area," or "if you buy this whatever," right away, they go, "We are not going to buy." And you keep saying "buy," "we're not buying." So you must drop "buy" and use another 3-letter word, which is own. When you own this, see, the feeling of owning, they've already got it. Where buying, they don't want to do because they're afraid.
Right.
So there's an example. Another one is the word contract. Now, most people that sell anything have a contract. And once a person hears that, they know that this thing you fill out and I put my name on, I'm bound. I don't want to get near it. So we always call it the paperwork or the agreement. See, people love agreements. Let's all agree. Give me your check. I'll give you the property. But they don't want to get near a contract. So there's an example. I always talk about, why don't we draft up our thoughts on the paperwork and see if it makes sense? Which again, the words "see if it makes sense" are pressure relievers, where I've in essence said, I'm going to put it all down. But if it doesn't make sense, you shouldn't do anything, which relieves pressure that you're saying to yourself, "Okay, we can look at it, but I'm not going ahead and putting my name on anything until it totally, in all areas, makes sense. So there again is an example. The word deal. I mean, that's a word so common in real estate. You know, it's a good real estate deal. The challenge is this person who's 35 or 40 probably bought something that the salesperson said was a good deal that ended up not to be a good deal. So the word deal is a fear producer. So I always tell people to call it a wise transaction or a good opportunity for your family. People love opportunities, love transactions. They just don't want it to be a good deal. And then, of course, the old 4-letter word, sign. Mom and Dad probably told all of us, don't sign anything, especially with a salesperson.
Right.
So I never asked them to sign. I asked them to okay the paperwork, approve it, authorize it, endorse it. It's amazing. They'll approve it, okay it, authorize it, endorse it. They're just nervous when you ask them to sign it. And that's another thing. A lot of times when I used to say to a buyer, John, why don't we draft up our feelings on the paperwork and just see how it looks and see if it makes sense? Right away, they'd say, well, you can do that, but we're not signing anything. And I'd always smile and say, I know, John, and believe me, that's the last thing I'm going to ask you to do. Isn't that true? They sign way down here.
That does happen last.
It's the last thing I'm going to ask you to do. Oh, words are so fun. Like the word objection. If you say, I can understand your objection, the human mind is filled with little envelopes. And one of the little envelopes holds objections. So by saying objection, out comes this envelope where they think of objections they wouldn't have thought of. So we always call them areas of concern. You know, I can appreciate that area of concern. And it didn't open up the objection envelope, which is going to cause me challenges.
It sounds like we're choosing a lot of softer words. You know, for example,
yes.
If you have to change a contract, you might say, we just need to tweak the agreement a little bit. If you talk about we need to amend the contract, they might want to get their attorney involved before you get back.
See, now there you hit it right on the nail. Softer words, gentler words create less fear. And you sound different than the last competitor salesperson they talked with.
So when it gets time to finally close the deal, and hopefully you've gotten some yeses along the way, I mean, how do you get those yeses along the way to close the deal? I guess, what are some of your favorite closing techniques?
Close a transaction, close a transaction.
Already sounding a little hard, huh? Finish up a deal.
The major yes is the consummation of minor yeses. And one of the questioning skills I've always taught is a little thing called the tie down. Now, the tie down is asking a question at the end of a sentence. And I've used a couple, haven't I? That was one, wasn't it? I did it again, didn't I?
You sure did.
You're catching on, aren't you?
Yes.
They're kind of fun, aren't they?
You're getting me to say yes.
Yes, well, see, that's the tie down.
Yeah.
Taking isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, can't you, won't you, haven't you, hasn't he, hasn't she, and nicely, with a nice nod, putting it on the end of a sentence. Now, I never did this in real estate until I got some positive input from them. Like, say, for example, I drove up in front of the house, as an example. I'm talking a residential now. And they went, they've taken good care of the yards. Well, see, now I'm going to say, in fact, the landscaping's important in a home, isn't it? Well, yes, it really is. So there's an agreement, building yes momentum. We walk in, it's the only home that has a fire, and I called the seller and said, light up the fire. Well, they walk in, they hear the crackling, they see the fire, and I smile and say, we really enjoy a fire on a winter's night, don't you? Well, yes, we do.
Absolutely. It feels like a home.
And then, of course, every time I can, I'm taking the isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it. You can't overdo it. But if you get little yeses, it builds yes momentum to where all the yes momentum carries the last decision of writing the check. So the tie down's a fun little technique. And if you're going to use it, don't overuse it. Never more than 2 in a presentation. So if I said to you, Keith, a reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I would never use isn't it again. Because if you say the same word over and over, it's called redundancy, and redundancy creates fear. So if I use an isn't it, that's done for this presentation. Another one of my favorite questions is called the alternative choice. And I have basically 40 questions I teach, but this is one of my favorites. Now, the definition of the alternative choice is a question with two answers. Either answer is a minor agreement leading towards the major decision. So, for example, if I wanted to meet you, the average person says, when can we get together? You won't give me a time. You'll say, I'll get back to you. So I always say, my time schedule is kind of flexible. Would today be good or tomorrow better? Now you can choose today, tomorrow. Or Keith, I can put into my schedule at 6 or would after dinner at 8 be better for you? Now you can't say yes or no. Pick a 6, pick an 8. You can do it on location. Keith, would you like to meet at my office or maybe meet at a neutral location and have a cup of coffee? What's best for you? There's a Starbucks right up the street. How would that be? Alternative choice.
It sounds like you had a significant turning point in your life when you were 19 years old. So I would bring it back to you and ask, if you could provide ideas and information to a 19-year-old investing enthusiast today, what kind of things would you tell them as far as spending their time and resources?
Well, the first thing I would say is you have to have money to spend money, and you must spend money to make money. The next thing I would do is if I lived in a certain city, I would find the top real estate company in that city. Then I would call the manager. You must get the manager. Mr. Manager, I want to refer some business to your company, but I only want to talk to a top producer. Who could I talk to that's your top producer? See, if you just call a company and go, can I talk to someone about real estate, they'll give you a brand new person with no experience.
Right.
I want a top producer. Then I call the top producer, Jim Smith. Jim, my name is Tom Hopkins. I'm in business in our community here, and I'm looking to do some real estate investing, but I wanted to meet you personally. Can we meet today or tomorrow be better? I then set an appointment. I meet with Jim. I say, Jim, I'm only 19 years of age, but I plan to do a lot of real estate investing. But what I'd like to do is this. I'd love to see if you'd like to partner with me when you find good properties. Meaning, when I'm ready financially, you find a good investment, you let me know, and I'll come up with half the money on the initial investment. You come up with the other, and now we have a partnership. You're making a commission, of course, on the transaction, but this is a way for me to start building a business. I find that if you get other professionals that know the market, and if you're willing to save your money like crazy, all of a sudden you start making half of a product. Half of a investment is better than a no investment. So for a young 19-year-old, find a real estate partner that wants to make the income off commissions, but also own some property with you. Give that a try. But I totally believe we're going to see a huge 2015. I believe that people that get investing now are going to have a wonderful 3 to 5 year growth cycle. Again, I couldn't talk about it unless I could honestly say that 90% of my abundance is in real estate equities.
This has been great, Tom. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that I should have asked you but haven't?
The goal setting is one of the main things I stress with people. Also, I feel that our ideas on goal setting have been proven to work. And if people want to have a mentor, I'd love them to consider me, because I do nothing but live teaching people the art of investing, the art of creating wealth. And again, abundance is a wonderful thing. And if you are living scarcity, you're in a country that allows abundance. And you should get really excited about having an abundant life, which comes back to goal setting.
You might as well set that goal, because what I always say is hope is not a strategy, and the difference between believing and knowing is doing. And the more doing, the closer you get to that goal.
Boy, that's right on, Keith, exactly. Yeah.
Tom, why don't you let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you to find out more about you?
Oh, well, that'd be great. They can go to tomhopkins.com and they can find out all about our products, our books, our CDs, DVDs. I have a seminar coming up, which I'm pumped about, in February in Orlando, Florida, right next to Disney World. And a lot of folks can take advantage of the tax deductions of education and bring their kids and come to Disney World. It's on February 20th and 21st. And if anyone's interested, they can always call my office in Scottsdale, Arizona. And that number is 800-528-0446. And we have customer service reps that'll be able to tell them all about the seminars or books. And of course, if they go to tomhopkins.com, they can go to, and by the way, those that are right now listening, we have a thing called the free resource page, which means if they go to my website, they get tomhopkins.com, go to free resource page. And we have all these wonderful things that no expense for people in sales that they can take advantage of. Let's make this year the best year ever.
That sounds fantastic. Hey, it's been so fun today, Tom. I don't think I've laughed this much in an interview in quite a while.
Thank you.
Well, the poor work for money. The middle class have some of their money work for them. The wealthy have other people's money work for them. I think that the amazing Tom Hopkins has his words working for him. After this, I hope that you will too. Check him out at tomhopkins.com and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to the Get Rich Education Podcast, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.